Welcome to the world of research. In this video, we are going to learn about the evolution of security studies as a subject. When we define this subject, it is precisely defined as interpreting the cause, specifically how different groups they talk about security, how do different scholars of security studies understand the schools of thoughts in the present and how those concepts are influencing the future. It is a broad concept of the subject of inquiry. It is based on Anglo-American intervention that gained prominence after World War II, but before World War II, there was no vacuum. It would be unjust to say that prior to World War II, there was complete vacuum. Initially, the security studies were conceived as war studies, and after the devastation of the First World War in 1914, scholars started thinking about understanding what its different sources are, how to mitigate those sources of war, how to preempt any such scenarios. So a number of prominent works were done during that interval. It stretches from 1914 to 1939 till Second World War. The prominent work at that time was the study of Quincy Wright, who wrote about a study of war. It was an edited volume that was composed of a number of chapters compiled by prominent scholars of war at that time. Even after so many decades, it was published in 1942, but the research work on this wording was started somewhere in 1924. So what was the writer does was that he compiled different accounts of war, the psychological sources, the sociological sources, the organizational sources, the biological sources, and even today the compilation was remain one of the most important sources to understand and manage the war in its classic sense, so that was about interwar period. Coming to the Second World War. In 1945, the scholarship on security studies realized that despite of all their efforts to prevent to understand the sources of war and prevention of war, it simply doesn't work. So what happened was the focus of the world that was moving back towards the national security. That's how to protect the national interest in an anarchic world order. This return of realist conception was something that was not new. International relations have always been dominated by the realist school of thought. Thomas Hobbes, The War of All Against All. He talks about the absence of a dominant Leviathan, and since there was anarchy and states were considered to be the prime sources and actors of international politics, states work on maximization of their power or they try to balance the threat. So, if you look at the evolution of international relations before 1914, that dominated was either by power or balance of power. But during the interval, the focus of work was changed. It was more focused on liberal school of thought, focusing more on cooperation between states. But after 1914, the discipline failed to anticipate any other global war. The focus was again back to the global security, the time period between 1914 and 45. What we have seen that number of schools were established in United States of America, and their key focus was to study how to protect national interest in an anarchic world order. It changed in 1955 with the advent of the nuclear weapon. The direction of security studies totally transformed from a narrow focus of national security to the strategic aspects of security, how to avoid mutually assured destruction, how to calculate adversity under a nuclear overhand, and from 1955, security studies in a number of universities was termed as strategic studies. From 1955 to 1965, it is considered as the golden age of security studies. In this time, number of concepts have been produced such as nuclear strategy and security. Thomas Suchlings also produced his seminal work that How to Overcome or Avoid the Miscalculations Under Nuclear Overhead. Then comes 1965. Almost 10 years have been passed in 1965 to the start of Vietnam War. It was in 1965 that the focus of security studies changed from nuclear security to counterinsurgency, guerrilla warfare, nationalism, peasant nationalism in Southeast Asia, area studies, and asymmetric warfare. United States, although it was supporting South Vietnam for a long time, but it directly intervened somewhere after 1960s. So when the hegemon practically entered in the Vietnam War, it was only then when the Western scholarship realized that all the focus was first on war studies, then on nuclear strategy, was of no use because they were confronting enemy. How good it does behave in different environments. Which factors lead to peasant nationalism? What is Southeast Asia sociological implications? From 1960, we see that area studies were focused in the backdrop of security. By security lens, scholars try to understand the regional aspects of security studies, and it remained there valid for 3 decades to come. Because in 1965, after Vietnam War, Soviet Union was facing the similar threat created by the US to produce Soviet Union's Vietnam, which was in Afghanistan. I'm talking about 1979, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Not only United States of America was supporting the guerrillas in Afghanistan, there were a number of other pro-Soviet guerrillas that were fighting America. So this focuses insurgency, and counterinsurgency started in 1965 and is still relevant in 1989. In 1989, Soviets withdrew from Afghanistan, so the principal source of threat was gone, and now the security agenda, there was a need to rewrite the global security agenda, reach the end of history. Some scholars, they argued that there is nothing after this, and they say that capitalism is the end of history. So what we will do with all the resources that were deployed for security? Then there was a shift from traditional security studies to non-traditional security studies. In 1990s, from traditional security to non-traditional security, the shift occurs. It was in 1990s when America and allies in Europe devoted more strategic resources to eliminate the threats to human security. The book written by Barry Buzan, People, States and Fear, somewhere in 1983. But it became even more relevant after 1989, and Buzan expanded the security agenda as well. The subject that was previously dominated realist focus, the security of the state, it was assumed that states are able to ensure their own security. They'll be able to assure other referent objects as well. Buzan totally transformed the definition of security, and he defined security in 5 different sectors, including military security, political security, economic security, societal security, and environmental security. Buzan didn't deny the prime significance of military security. He was very clear in his conception that there is no trade-off between military and political security, military and environmental security. Maritime security order and military security is as important for a state as environment and security. So what was this paradigm shift? That if the states can protect their citizens, citizens will form the first line of defense against any external threat. That's how you saw European allies of United States of America started devoting more resources to social welfare of its citizens. There was a paradigm shift in the entire world. In America, at least domestically, and Europe have Japan and South Korea. But there were still some powers in the world that stuck to the old plan. Some states stuck to the previous plan that was the traditional security, which was state-centric paradigm. South Asia is one such example. Our strategic culture, the traditional state-centricism still remains there. Concluding by asking a question that why do you think that when there was a global paradigm shift from traditional to non-traditional security threat, why is South Asia stuck to the state-centricism? Please answer in the comment section. Please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more exciting and informative videos. Thank you. Good luck with your research.